afternoon, everybody. I know everyone's thinking, finally, we're to the home inspection part of the process. I'm glad you laughed at that. I could quite literally sit up here and talk about home inspections for as long as you need me to. So we're gonna try to truncate this a little bit. Some brief information about House to Home. I've been in business for over 20 years in the greater Milwaukee area. I have personally been a home inspector for about 14 years, going on 14 in a month or two here. I have owned the company for about 6 years. It's changed hands once or twice. We're a multi-inspector firm, so we have multiple inspectors on staff. We cover most of southeast Wisconsin, though we are basically and primarily in the greater Milwaukee area, but we do go to Sheboygan, Fond du Lac, we go to the border. We go into Madison. We'll go just about anywhere someone wants to pay us to do a home inspection within reasonable driving distance. I've grown up in the Waukesha area, married with 4 kids, so this has been home for a long time. And as a home inspector, you see a lot of different things from new to old and everything in between. Having given a little background on the company, I think what I'd like to do is jump right into just asking or giving an idea of what a home inspection is meant to accomplish. The reason I go that route is I think there's a lot of disinformation, quite honestly, about what home inspections are about and what they're meant to accomplish. Every time I walk up to somebody in a driveway as I pull up to a house to start a home inspection, I'll ask them all the same question. I'll say, have you ever been through a home inspection? Sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's no, but my answer is pretty much always the same. It's, well, let me give you an idea of what we're going to accomplish today on your behalf. And I try to set some expectations for people, because if you don't do that, they're going to create their own expectations, which can be dangerous sometimes. And even worse, maybe Uncle Bob, who comes with them, is going to set the expectation for them, and we really don't want that. We want it to be based in fact and reality. So I start by saying this. This is not a code compliancy inspection. That's the biggest misconception. They think we're with the city and that it's going to be based on code and code compliancy. Who lives in a house that's built anywhere from 50 to 100 years ago? That house is almost certainly not up to modern code. You would, in some cases, if you're in Shorewood, Whitefish Bay, West Allis, Waukesha, wherever there's an old house, you might have to start over on that house to bring it up to be code compliant. So, sometimes, particularly if you're moving from Illinois, apparently that makes their eyes bug out, like, what do you mean it's not a code compliancy inspection? I'll say, well, let me tell you what it is. It's a general information report about the house. It's meant to give you as much information in a 2 to 3 hour period, which is about what a typical home inspection takes, on that house, so you can use that and make an informed decision based on your own personal situation. I say it that way because a lot of people will ask me, and I kid you not, this comes up 1 out of every 2 inspections, would you buy this house? Well, I'm never, ever, ever going to answer that question for you, because there's too many factors involved. What's the price of the house? Are you someone who set a budget aside to make repairs and improvements? I'm there to give information on the house, and that's it. I don't make buying decisions. I don't make any opinions related to a purchase for somebody. It's just straight facts. So basically, it's not code compliancy. So what it is it's going to be a condition report of the house based on 3 major categories. The first one is safety. The house should be in safe working condition. That's regardless of code. The next is going to be, is it structurally sound? Obviously, that's going to relate mainly to your foundation, to your attic. And then the final thing is, mechanically, is it functioning as it's intended to function? Are the systems of the house doing what they're intended to do? And that's regardless of age. I'm pushing in my upper 40s now, and I like to tell people, just because I'm old doesn't mean I'm defective. We're looking for the defect, right? I need more maintenance than I used to. Don't throw me out yet. I'm glad 1 or 2 people laughed at that, because that joke hits or misses. But that's the same with, if you have a 25-year-old furnace, is it working right? Yes, I'm going to tell you it's old and that you need to maintain it. Is it working correctly or not? Is it safe? Is it structurally sound? Is it operating as a system as it's intended to operate? We're not gonna show up in overalls with a sledgehammer like you see on HGTV. Obviously, that's not real, but it's going to be a visual inspection of the house. We're not opening up walls. We're always gonna access the roof or attic if at all possible. But it's a non-destructive inspection, meaning we're not opening things up, we're not pulling things apart. So these are things that I think are really important for buyers or anyone that's interested in a home inspection to know. What exactly does a home inspector do? What are they trying to accomplish on your behalf? And of course, what experience do they have in the home inspection industry? So that's the basics of it. I'd certainly be happy to answer any and all questions that you have. Yes, sir.
Yeah, when you do home inspection, is there a difference between you buying a house versus buying a condominium?
I'm sorry, say that again.
When people do house inspection, is there any difference between if you buy a house versus buying a condominium?
Well, there's differences, just because with a condo, if there's an association, they're going to take care of a lot more exterior items than you would obviously if it's a single family home. But as far as how we inspect it, not really. It's a shorter process, but even with a condo, we go through the same process. We still look at things on the outside. Now let's just say this has come up where I've been at a condo, multi-unit condo. I have 4 units, 8 units, whatever it was. And the roof was in bad shape. And usually I'll note that and say, hey, it's a discussion you want to have with your association. Make sure they have a plan of repairs. You know, you're not going to get hit immediately with a special assessment when you move into the property, that kind of thing. So there are some differences, but we inspect every property basically the same way. I think to expand on that, the best advice anyone ever gave me, I think when I got into this job, is I inspect every property the same. You know, whether it's a $50,000 house or a $1 million house, the person buying that property is very likely making the biggest purchase of their life. To that point, or maybe ever, treat every house the exact same. I don't look at the listing price. I might look at house details. I try not to let any of that determine how I do things. I try to do it the same on every single property. So hopefully that answered your question. Any other questions?
Here, please. So, does new home also need a house inspection? If you buy a home, new home?
Does it need it? It's a matter of opinion, and keep in mind I'm very biased, right? That's how I feed my kids, so of course it needs it. A lot of people will skip it on that. I will tell you, I have been through a lot of new construction properties that we've inspected quite a few, but it is a small percentage of what we do. I'd say less than 5% on a yearly basis. Usually, if someone's inspecting a new property, there was a breakdown in the process somewhere with the builder, or they lost trust in the process somewhere. Generally, I don't find major problems on a brand new house. A lot of times what you'll find is workmanship concerns. So yeah, we do them. Are they as common? No. Are they a bad idea? It's probably based on your own personal situation. Yeah. But we still tend to find little items that, I was at one in Pewaukee a couple weeks ago where a storm blew a bunch of shingles off, for instance. And you know, you will come across things like that from time to time. What we are actually seeing a big increase on though is warranty inspections. So when you hit that 8-month period and the builder's warranty is coming up, we're doing quite a few of those where we'll come in and just go back through the house so they can, you know, have a fight with the builder, I guess. But that's increased quite a bit, so. Any other questions? Yes?
What's the worst condition house that you kind of inspected so far?
Oh, you know, we run the gauntlet on that. We do inspections for lenders who are giving out some rehab loans that want to know the condition of the house before they do it, and some of those are pretty bad. Water in the basement, mold throughout the property, pretty much anything that could be wrong with the house. So there's been some pretty bad ones. Yes, sir.
So when a home buyer calls you for an inspection, so would you look for just safety and is the house up to code, or would you also help the customer say there are a few defects here and there, you should ask your builder to look it up.
So again, we don't inspect up to code.
Okay.
And there's reasons for that, but again, typically, old houses won't meet that, and code does change a little bit from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. It might be a little different here in West Dallas versus, Shorewood, but again, so we focus on safety, structure, and mechanical defects with the house. I didn't quite answer your question, I'm missing part of it.
So I was like, is it just gonna be about safety and, being everything up to code as the building as such to, for the recent
So
changes?
functionality is how
Yeah,
I would answer that.
functionality.
We wanna make sure that the house is functioning as it's
Okay.
intended to function.
Okay,
So it's really based on safety, structure, mechanical defects, and then giving you as much information around that as we possibly can in the amount of time that we have to do it. So we're not gonna say, buy it, don't buy it. A home inspector should be able to give you some idea of what a major issue is versus a smaller issue. If I find a leaking faucet, I'm not gonna say that's a defect of the house, that doesn't devalue the property, but it still has to be fixed. So it's a notable item, whereas if we find major movement in a foundation, or an earlier point, chimneys are almost, old chimneys are almost always, they need something if they haven't been touched. Those, we're gonna refer usually to a specialist in that field, because we think it could be a bigger problem, and we might label that a quote-unquote defect to the house. And a defect would be something that could reduce the value or have a major impact on the property.
right. So being like a second buyer or a third buyer of the house, say there are like few defects here and there, like that would decide the cost of the house, like could go up and down, right?
But, again, I'd have to refer to the realtors on that one.
Yeah.
It's been an interesting market, without going into great detail. My job is to give you information.
Yeah.
And you and your realtor kind of decide what to
Right.
do with that information
Right.
based on your own situation.
Right,
But
yeah.
I'm there to give you as much information as possible to help
Yeah.
you, I guess, make whatever decision is best for you.
Right. No, you mentioned Bob, so our inspector was Bob, and he was really helpful, and we got, a lot of things fixed because he got like 30 items that needed to be fixed.
Which is great. I mean, that's obviously the goal of the inspection,
Right,
to find
right.
problems. I was referring to my Uncle Bob. Who
Okay, maybe it's the same
was
Bob.
the ultimate handyman
Yeah.
in my life.
Yeah.
I remember doing a promotional video, put it on Facebook, and he commented on it, that you can just throw some roof tar up there and get another 10 years out of it, and I was like, just a promotion. So that's who I was referencing,
Right.
but I'm glad that the
Thank you.
inspector helped you out, because that is the goal.
Mhm.
I have a question. Is your pricing for the inspection around the square footage of the property?
It is. So our average price is gonna be somewhere around $400 to $450, depending on size. It could go up from there. I'd say we're probably middle upper on the price. There are some out there that might be $500 to $600, but I'd say between $400 and $600 is pretty typical for a home inspection, at least from my experience.
Are you gonna be around later for
I'm
additional
gonna be around
questions?
later for
Okay,
questions.
perfect.
Like I said, you guys might need to cut me off because I could talk all day. But I'd be glad to answer whatever questions anyone has after the fact if we need to move forward. So, thanks for